So.
Okay. And howdy, everybody. Welcome to the Word, number 54. Okay. That's right, okay. Apparently everybody else is muted.
What's up? I'm trying to find the video.
Hi.
Howdy, Lynn. Howdy, Dee. Howdy, Matt. Howdy, Landon.
What's happening?
Yeah. How's everybody's day so far?
Yeah.
Nice here.
Right?
It's going to be a lot more restful later.
That's what you think. Until the rowdies show up.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if rowdies are showing up or not. I need to message him.
And there's JJ. Howdy, Alvina. Howdy, JJ.
Alvina.
Yeah.
Isn't Alvina reading today?
Huh?
Isn't Alvina reading today?
Alvina? Yeah. She's reading in her mind.
Yeah. She'll only read if Landon makes her.
That's right. I was going to say, only if she's with Landon will she read.
And Ashley, look at that.
Ashley.
I mean, Colby should pop in any second.
Hey, JJ.
All right. So today we're continuing on in the building of the kingdom under David, starting in Samuel, the second book of Samuel, chapter 9, going to 10, 11, 12, and rounding it out with 13. I know, exciting, isn't it? Okay. Anybody got anything we want to pray about? We'll wait until the chat catches up too. See if anybody there has something.
Y'all can just keep John still in your prayers. He's in a bit of pain. Nerves.
All right, let's go ahead and pray in. Heavenly Father, thank you very much for bringing us together again. We're grateful for that. And, excuse me, we ask for your insight and wisdom for everything we read today. And ask for you to give us your understanding and what it is that we see and share with each other. And we thank you for that. And we would also ask for you to touch John and his household and remove his pain. Give him comfort and give your comforter to everyone there and here. And we thank you for that in Jesus Yeshua's name. Amen. All right. Let us get started. 2 Samuel, chapter 9. Let's see if I'm having computer issues today. Not so far. Okay. I'm just slow, that's all. But y'all already knew that. Okay. 2 Samuel chapter 9. And David said, "Is there yet any that is left of the house of Saul, that I may show him kindness for Jonathan's sake?" And there was of the house of Saul a servant whose name was Ziba. And when they had called him unto David, the king said unto him, "Art thou Ziba?" And he said, "Thy servant is he." And the king said, "Is there not yet any of the house of Saul, that I may show the kindness of God unto him?" And Ziba said unto the king, "Jonathan hath yet a son, which is lame on his feet." And the king said unto him, "Where is he?" And Ziba said unto the king, "Behold, he is in the house of Machir, the son of Ammiel, in Lodabar." Then King David sent and fetched him out of the house of Machir, the son of Ammiel, from Lodabar. And when Mephibosheth, the son of Jonathan, the son of Saul, was come unto David, he fell on his face and did reverence. And David said, "Mephibosheth." And he answered, "Behold thy servant." And David said unto him, "Fear not, for I will surely show thee kindness for Jonathan thy father's sake, and will restore thee all the land of Saul thy father, and thou shalt eat bread at my table continually." And he bowed himself and said, What is thy servant, that thou shouldst look upon such a dead dog as I am? Then the king called to Ziba, Saul's servant, and said unto him, I have given unto thy master's son all that pertained to Saul and to all his house. Verse 10. Thou therefore and thy sons and thy servants shall till the land for him, and thou shalt bring in the fruits that thy master's son may have food to eat. But Mephibosheth, thy master's son, shall eat bread alway at my table. Now Ziba had 15 sons and 20 servants. Then said Ziba unto the king, According to all that my lord the king hath commanded his servant, so shall thy servant do. As for Mephibosheth, said the king, he shall eat at my table as one of the king's sons. And Mephibosheth had a young son whose name was Micah, and all that dwelt in the house of Ziba were servants unto Mephibosheth. So Mephibosheth dwelt in Jerusalem, for he did eat continually at the king's table, and was lame on both his feet.
Second Samuel 10. And after this it came to be that the sovereign of the children of Ammon died, and Hanun his son reigned in his place. And David said, Let me show loving commitment to Hanun, son of Nahash, as his father showed loving kindness to me. And David sent him by the hand of his servant to comfort him concerning his father. And when David's servant came into the land of the children of Ammon, the chiefs of the children of Ammon said to Hanun, their master, Is David esteeming your father in your eyes, in that he has sent comforters to you? Has David not rather sent his servants to you to search the city and to spy it out and to overthrow it? So Hanun took David's servants and shaved off half their beards and cut off their garments in the middle as far as their buttocks and sent them away. And they informed David, and he sent to meet them, because the men were greatly ashamed. And the sovereign said, Wait at Jericho until the beards have grown, and then return. And when the children of Ammon saw that they had become a stench to David, the children of Ammon sent and hired Armenians in Beth Rohab and Armenians of Zobah, 20,000 foot soldiers, and the sovereign of Maacah, 1,000 men, and the men of Tob, 12,000 men. And David heard and sent Joab and the entire army, the mighty men. And the children of Ammon came out and put themselves in battle array and at the entrance of the gate. And the Armenians of Zobah and Rohab, the men of Tob and Maacah, were by themselves in the field. And Joab saw the battle line was against him before and behind, and he chose out of all the chosen men of Israel and put them in battle array against the Armenians. And the rest of the people he gave under the hand of Abishai, his brother, and he put them in battle array against the children of Amnon. And he said, If the Armenians are too strong for me, then you shall help me. But if the children of Ammon are too strong for you, then I shall come and help you. Be strong, and let us show strength for our people and for the cities of Elohim, and let Yahweh do what is good in his eyes. And Joab drew near, and the people with him, to battle against Aram, and they fled before him. And when the children of Ammon saw that the Armenians were fleeing, they also fled before Abishai, and went into the city. And Joab returned from the children of Ammon, and came to Jerusalem. And Aram saw that they were smitten before Israel, and they gathered together. And Hadadezer sent and brought out the Armenians who were beyond the river, and they came to Hilam, and Shobach, the commander of the army of Hadadezer, went before them. And it was reported to David, and he gathered all Israel and passed over the Jordan and came to Hilam. And Aram sent themselves in battle array against David, and they fought with him. And Aram fled before Israel, and David killed 700 charioteers and 40,000 horsemen of Aram, and he struck Shobach, the commander of the army, who died there. And all the sovereigns, the servants of Hadadezer, saw that they were smitten by Israel, and made peace with Israel and served them. And the Arameans were afraid to help the children of Ammon anymore.
Then it happened in the spring, at the time when the kings go out to battle, that David sent Joab and his servants with him and all Israel, and they destroyed the sons of Ammon, and besieged Rabbah. But David stayed at Jerusalem. Now when evening came, David arose from his bed and walked around on the roof of the king's house, and from the roof he saw a woman bathing, and the woman was very beautiful in appearance. So David sent and inquired about the woman. And one said, "Is this not Bathsheba, the daughter of Elam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite?" And David sent his messengers and took her. And when she came to him, he lay with her. And when she had purified herself from her uncleanness, she returned to her house. The woman conceived, and she sent and told David and said, "I am pregnant." Then David sent to Joab, saying, "Send me Uriah the Hittite." So Joab sent Uriah and to David. When Uriah came to him, David asked concerning the welfare of Joab and the people in the state of the war. Then David said to Uriah, "Go down to your house and wash your feet." And Uriah went out of the king's house, and a present from the king was sent to him out after him. But Uriah slept at the door of the king's house with all the servants of his lord, and did not go down to his house. Now when they told David, saying, "Uriah did not go down to his house," David said to Uriah, "Have you not come from a journey? Why did you not go down to your house?" Uriah said to David, "The ark of Israel and Judah are staying in temporary shelters, and my lord Joab and the servants of my lord are camping in the open field. Shall I then go to my house and eat and drink, and to lie with my wife? By your life and your life of your soul, I will not do this thing." Then David said to Uriah, "Stay here today also, and tomorrow I will let you go." So Uriah remained in Jerusalem that day and the next. Now David called him, and he ate and drank before him, and he made him drunk. And in the evening he went out to lie on his bed with the Lord's servants, but he did not go down to his house. Now in the morning David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it by the hand of Uriah. He had written in the letter, saying, "Place Uriah in the front line of the fiercest battle, and withdraw from him, so that he may be struck down and die." So it was as Joab kept watch of the city, that he put Uriah in the place where he knew there were valiant men. The men of the city went out and fought against Joab, and some of the people among David's servants fell, and Uriah the Hittite also died. Then Joab sent and reported to David all the events of the war. He charged the messengers, saying, "When you have finished telling all the events of the war to the king, and if it happens that the king's wrath rises, and he says to you, 'Why did you go so near to the city to fight? Did you not know that they would shoot from the wall? Who struck down Abimelech, the son of Jesebeth? Did not a woman throw an upper millstone around him from the wall, so that he died at Thebez? Why did you go near the wall?' Then you shall say, 'Your servant Uriah the Hittite is also dead.'" So the messenger departed, and it came and reported to David all that Joab had sent to him to tell. The messenger said to David, "The men prevailed against us and came out against us in the field, but we pressed them as far as the entrance to the gate. Moreover, the archers shot at your servants from the wall. So some of the king's servants are dead, and your servant Uriah the Hittite is also dead." Then David said to the messengers, "Thus you shall say to Joab, 'Do not let this thing displease you, for the sword devours one as well as another. Make your battle against the city stronger and overthrow it, and so encourage him.'" Now when the wife of Uriah heard that Uriah her husband was dead, she mourned for her husband. When the time of mourning was over, David sent and brought her to his house, and she became his wife. Then she bore him a son. But the thing that David had done was evil in the sight of the Lord.
Chapter 12. And the Lord sent Nathan, the prophet, to David, and he went in to him and said to him, There were two men in one city, one rich and the other poor. And the rich man had very many flocks and herds, but the poor man had only one little ewe lamb, which he had purchased and preserved and reared. And it grew up with himself and his children in common. It ate of his bread and drank of his cup and slept in his bosom, and was to him as a daughter. And a traveler came to the rich man, and he spared to take of his flocks and of his herds to dress for the traveler that came to him. And he took the poor man's lamb and dressed it for the man that came to him. And David was greatly moved with anger against the man. And David said to Nathan, As the Lord lives, the man that did this thing shall surely die, and he shall restore the lamb sevenfold, because he has not spared. And Nathan said to David, Thou art the man that has done this. Thus says the Lord God of Israel, I anointed thee to be king over Israel, and I rescued thee out of the hand of Saul. And I gave thee the house of thy Lord, and the wives of thy Lord into thy bosom. And I gave to thee the house of Israel and Judah, and if it had been little, I would have given thee yet more. Why hast thou set at naught the word of the Lord, to do that which is evil in his eyes? Thou hast slain Uriah the Hittite with the sword, and thou hast taken his wife to be thy wife, and thou hast slain him with the sword of the children of Ammon. Now therefore the sword shall not depart from thy house forever, because thou hast set me at naught, and thou hast taken the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be my wife. Thus said the Lord, Behold, I will raise up the evil out of thy house, and I will take thy wives before thine eyes, and will give them to thy neighbor, and he shall lie with thy wives in the sight of this sun. For thou didst secretly, but I will do this thing in the sight of all Israel and before the sun. And David said to Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord. And Nathan said to David, And the Lord has put away thy sin. Thou shalt not die. Only because thou hast given great occasion of provocation to the enemies of the Lord by this thing, thy son also that is born to thee shall surely die. And Nathan departed to his house, and the Lord smote the child, which the wife of Uriah the Hittite bore to David, and it was ill. And David inquired God concerning the child, and David fasted and went in and lay all night upon the ground. And the elders of his house arose and went to him to raise him up from the ground, but he would not rise, nor did he eat bread with them. And it came to pass on the seventh day that the child died. And the servants of David were afraid to tell him that the child was dead, for they said, Behold, while the child was yet alive, we spoke to him, and he hearkened not to our voice. And thou should we tell him that the child is dead, so would he do himself harm? And David understood that his servants were whispering, and David perceived that the child was dead. And David said to his servants, Is the child dead? And they said, He is dead. Then David rose up from the earth and washed and anointed himself and changed his raiment and went into the house of God and worshipped him and went into his own house and called for bread to eat. And they set bread before him and he ate. And his servants said to him, What is this thing that thou hast done concerning the child? While it was yet living, thou didst fast and weep and watch. And when the child was dead, thou didst rise up and didst eat bread and drink. And David said, While the child yet lived, I fasted and wept. For I said, Who knows if the Lord will pity me and the child live? But now it is dead. Why should I fast thus? Shall I be able to bring him back again? I shall go to him, but he shall not return to me. And David comforted Bathsheba his wife, and he went into her and lay with her. And she conceived and bore a son, and he called his name Solomon. And the Lord loved him. And he sent by the hand of Nathan the prophet, and called his name Jedidiah for the Lord's sake. And Joab fought against Rabbath of the children of Ammon, and took the royal city. And Joab sent messengers to David, and said, I have fought against Rabbath, and taken the city of waters. And now gather the rest of the people, and encamp against the city, and take it beforehand, lest I take the city first, and my name be called upon it. And David gathered all the people, and went to Rabbath, and fought against it, and took it. And he took the crown of Malcham, their chief, from off his head, and the weight of it was a talent of gold, with precious stones, and it was upon the head of David. And he carried forth very much spoil of the city. And he brought forth the people that were in it, and put them under the saw, and under iron harrows and axes of iron, and made them pass through the brick kiln. And thus he did to all the cities of the children of Ammon, and David and all the people returned to Jerusalem.
Chapter 13. Now Absalom, David's son, had a beautiful sister whose name was Tamar. And after a time, Ammon, David's son, loved her. And Ammon was so tormented that he made himself ill because of his sister Tamar, for she was a virgin, and it seemed impossible to Ammon to do anything to her. But Ammon had a friend whose name was Jonadab, the son of Shemaiah, David's brother. And Jonadab was a very crafty man. And he said to him, O son of the king, why are you so haggard this morning? Sorry. O son of the king, why are you so haggard morning after morning? Will you not tell me? Ammon said to him, I love Tamar, my brother, Absalom's sister. Jonadab said to him, lie down on your bed and pretend to be ill. And when your father comes to see you, say to him, let my sister Tamar come and give me bread to eat, and prepare the food in my sight, that I may see it and eat it from her hand. So Ammon lay down and pretended to be ill. And when the king came to see him, Ammon said to the king, please let my sister Tamar come and make a couple of cakes in my sight, that I may eat from her hand. Then David sent home to Tamar, saying, go to your brother Ammon's house and prepare food for him. So Tamar went to her brother Ammon's house, where he was lying down. And she took dough and kneaded it and made cakes in his sight and baked the cakes. And she took the pan and emptied it out before him. But he refused to eat. So Ammon said, send out everyone from me. So everyone went out from him. And then Ammon said to Tamar, bring the food into the chamber, that I may eat from your hand. And Tamar took the cakes she had made and brought them into the chamber to Ammon her brother. But when she brought them near him to eat, he took hold of her and said to her, come lie with me, my sister. She answered him, no, my brother, do not violate me. Where such a thing is not done in Israel, do not do this outrageous thing. As for me, where could I carry my shame? And as for you, you would be as one of the outrageous fools in Israel. Now therefore, please speak to the king, for he will not withhold me from you. But he would not listen to her, and being stronger than she, he violated her and lay with her. Then Ammon hated her with very great hatred, so that the hatred with which he hated her was greater than the love with which he had loved her. And Ammon said to her, get up, go. But she said to him, no, my brother, for this wrong is sending me away is greater than the other that you did to me. But he would not listen to her. He called the young man who served him and said, put this woman out of my presence and bolt the door after her. Now she was wearing a long robe with sleeves, for thus were the virgin daughters of the king dressed. So his servant put her out and bolted the door after her. And Tamar put ashes on her head and tore the long robe that she wore. And she laid her hand on her head and went away, crying aloud as she went. And her brother Absalom said to her, has Anon your brother been with you? Now hold your peace, my sister. He is your brother. Do not take this to heart. So Tamar lived a desolate woman in her brother Absalom's house. When King David heard of these things, he was very angry. But Absalom spoke to Amnon, neither good nor bad. For Absalom hated Amnon, because he had violated his sister Tamar. After 2 full years, Absalom had sheep shearers at Baal Hazor, which is near Ephraim. And Absalom invited all the king's sons. And Absalom came to the king and said, behold, your servant has sheep shearers. Please let the king and his servants go with your servant. But the king said to Absalom, no, my son, let us not all go, lest we be burdensome to you. He pressed him, but he would not go, but gave him his blessing. Then Absalom said, if not, please let my brother Amnon go with us. And the king said to him, why should he go with you? But Absalom pressed him until he let Amnon and all the king's sons go with him. Then Absalom commanded his servants, mark when Amnon's heart is merry with wine. And when I say to you, strike Amnon, then kill him. And do not fear, Have I not commanded you? Be courageous and be valiant. So the servants of Absalom did to Amnon as Absalom had commanded. Then all the king's sons arose, and each mounted his mule and fled. While they were on their way, news came to David. Absalom has struck down all the king's sons, and not one of them is left. Then the king arose and tore his garment and lay on the earth. And all his servants who were standing by tore their garments. But Jonadab, the son of Shemaiah, David's brother, said, Let not my lord suppose that they have killed all your young men, the king's sons, for Amnon alone is dead. For by the command of Absalom, this has been determined from the day he violated his sister Tamar. Now therefore let not my lord the king so take it to heart as to suppose that all the king's sons are dead, for Amnon alone is dead. But Absalom fled, and the young man who kept the watch lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, many people were coming from the road behind him, by the side of the mountain. And Jonadab said to the king, Behold, the king's sons have come. As your servant said, so it has come about. And as soon as he had finished speaking, behold, the king's sons came and lifted up their voice and wept. And the king also and all his servants wept very bitterly. But Absalom fled and went to Talmai, the son of Ammihud, king of Geshur. And David mourned for his son day after day. But Absalom fled and went to Geshur, and was there 3 years. And the spirit of the king longed to go out to Absalom, because he was comforted about Amnon since he was dead.
Well, yeah, it's quite the roller coaster today, huh?
Quite the story.
All right, so let's go back to chapter 9. Yeah, and I was reading that. So, what did you all get? Go, slow down. Don't everybody speak once.
Like verse 7, I just thought it was, David kept his commitment to Jonathan, to take care of his descendants.
That's what I got too, Donna. I thought that was pretty cool. It's like, wow, he's taking care of Saul's family, and he really loved, he esteemed and respected Saul's family, and he must have really loved Jonathan to, make sure that he did everything for Saul's family. So that's pretty cool.
Well, I mean, he's still viewed, even though Saul did a whole bunch of stuff that he shouldn't have, David still viewed him as, the chosen, that Abba chose him and anointed him. So
Yep.
he still honored that, even though he was his enemy at some point.
Well, it's kind of the a repeating theme. It seems like, right? I mean, think about that. To Saul, David was his enemy, but David was like, "Dude,
Right.
I don't have a problem with you." LOL. I mean, I've had people that just hate me. It's like, okay, why? Because you're my enemy.
I didn't do anything to you.
Well, yeah, why? Howdy, Willis. When you coming out here, man?
Is Willis in there? It's about time.
Yep. And yeah, it's pretty good though. That David's keeping his vow. Now, verse 10. What a position for this dude Ziba to be in, huh? Because basically he's getting all of Saul's household. Because Mephibosheth is going to be
Staying with David.
hanging out with David, right? So, I mean, that's a pretty cool position.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's like his reward for keeping Mephibosheth hidden.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go to 10.
Whose house did he store the Ark of the Covenant in when he was scared of it?
I think we read that, didn't we?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, let's go to chapter 10. I don't have anything until verse 2. This is pretty intense. David's like kind of reminiscing. He's like, hey, man, this guy was really good to me when I was on the run from Saul. And I want to just repay him, repay his son. And this guy's like, oh, no. But verse 2, though, he's like, he wants to repay that kindness.
Mm-hmm.
So here again, we have David thinking he's a friend with somebody, and this person is like, you're my enemy.
Well, it's interesting because sometimes, in the workplace, we have somebody that's our friend that when we were underlings to them, and then we get promoted or something like that, and you become a threat. You're no longer their friend.
Actually, that is kind of exactly what I was thinking. I was likening it to, though, you hear about the people that love music and then they become a famous rock star. And then everybody's like, they're just a big jerk now. And they can't stand him anymore. But then you have that, who is it, Joe Walsh? Rocky Mountain Way, talking about, I'm the same, but everybody else has changed.
Mm.
Yeah, I love he was one of my favorites. Yeah.
That doesn't surprise me for some reason. Interesting. I just wanted to point out, too, when you were reading your translation, D says Armenians, and everyone else, I think it says Syrians.
Syrians.
I think it actually, I mispronounced it. I think it's Arameans.
I don't know.
I think, well, Arameans. I think it's
That's what
Arameans.
mine says.
I pronounced it wrong.
Hi, Michelle.
Michelle.
Yeah, it is true, though. Takes
Yeah,
effort.
mine says Armenians or Armenians too.
All right.
Arameans.
That's all I have for chapter 10. You guys got anything else?
Nope.
No, the only thing I had one is it stuck out at me was the way that, Hanun didn't kill them, he showed them disrespect, and that was probably worse.
Yeah, have your beard shaved off and
Walk around bottom
walk
half
around half naked. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird that was how they shamed him.
Yeah.
Well, because all the hair and everything, if you shave your head and all that, it's like a shame thing. And like, remember how they would take the captives and then she would decide she would shave her head and he would let her mourn and then cut all her fingernails off. And then she would decide if she wants to stay in his house or go. And he would have to, but that was like the pagan thing, shave your head, mourn. And it's like a shame thing.
I don't think too many people would be shamed by it today.
No.
Well, but then when
Depends on culture.
that's all right, vows, you
Yeah.
shave everything. When you come off of a Nazarite vow, you shave everything.
Every hair off your body.
I'm not so sure about the eyelashes.
Yeah.
Landon, can you give me a hand back here? Just take the knife. My vow is over.
You think it literally meant every hair, or just like?
I think when it says shave every hair from your body. Yeah, I think that's what it means.
Like eyelashes, eyebrows,
Everything you
nose,
can get off.
hair.
Everything you can shave off.
That was a process.
Yeah, that would be a process. And those knives probably weren't just the sharpest back then either. Well, no, they had
They say that, but then you have stuff like, I remember they found a lice comb in a dig in Israel that's like way
Super sharp.
finer than anything manufactured today.
It's made out of bone.
The teeth on the combs were like 2 hair widths apart.
Hmm.
So were they really dumber than we are?
Nope.
Or
You ever seen that book? It's called The Genius of Ancient Man, and it actually goes pretty in detail, like of actually how it has a good case of proving that they actually were a lot smarter. Like,
it's like wooden ships. Wooden ships get bigger and bigger and bigger the further back you go in time in history.
Well, you think about, there are groups of people that are talking about off-grid living and the thought processes behind how you do something without electricity, without the modern day things.
Right.
You have some knowledge to do that.
Yeah.
It's not I'm just going to go, head out in the woods.
They show how like there's really good evidence for like how they built stuff back then. They had like pulley systems and whatnot built out of wood where people would your strength would actually run the machines instead of having have engines and power. But it was all leverage and stuff like that, and they had it down.
Okay, I'm mistaken. So the Nazarite, it is just the head. You are correct, Willis. But shaving the whole body, what is that for? There's a different thing where they have to do that.
I remember that too. I don't remember what it was though.
Yeah. I thought you shaved your whole body when you take the vow.
Was it after leprosy? After you were cleansed from leprosy?
Maybe.
It was
That's
one of
one.
the.
Yep.
Well, the priests were commanded to shave everything, right? Before
The Leviticus 14, talking about the lepers, and then
if you have COVID, you need to shave every piece of hair off your body.
COVID. No.
interesting.
There wouldn't be any need for contact tracing if people stuck by the biblical.
Right? All right. Anything else for 10? Let's go to 11 then. I don't have anything until verse 2.
Oh.
Stuck with verse 2 today.
That's where my first one starts.
I don't remember where I saw it, but there was. It might have been Steve Moutry on one of his recent short studies talking about we tempt ourselves. That's what David did there. He was watching this woman bathe. That's like prehistoric porn.
Yeah.
He sees a woman washing herself. And he's like, well, he's entreating himself.
So instead of turning around and walking away from the window, stands there and watches.
Nope, he calls the servant over and goes, hey, go bring her here.
I find it interesting that apparently she was willing. She didn't tell him no.
Yeah. Yeah, that is interesting, isn't it? I picked that up on this reading too. It's like, wow, she was just okay with it.
How many married women today, if they stumbled upon Brad Pitt, though, would not? I mean, it's just kind of that he was the king, the
Yeah.
flesh.
Yeah, power and wealth.
Mhm.
Right.
And that's something, that's a good question, Sky. But he's supposed to be king over Yah's anointed nation.
Yeah. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did it.
So anybody, she'd tell Brad no, that anybody should be able to rebuke the king according to the way the commandment came down that a king was supposed to behave. But they were also told that's not the way it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Now, she could have done the same thing that Tamar did.
Maybe.
Just say, don't do this. This is dishonorable.
Right. Well, it's interesting. It comes back to back, these two stories.
Yeah, but it doesn't mention it. That's why it's like, I don't know.
I mean, we don't know. Maybe she did
Yeah,
Yeah.
we don't have the whole story.
have it all, but
I'm sure we don't have both sides and what was said and how she feels.
And that I don't have anything then until verse 15. If you got anything before that. Still not writing down numbers, man, huh? Okay.
I was watching a video the other day that was talking about verse 9. In verse 9, it stuck out at me that Uriah was a Hittite, yet was honorable.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he was a knight.
Do you think that maybe that was why his wife didn't say anything? Because they were considered in servitude?
Possibility.
Mm. So, it makes you wonder if she was an Ite, because Solomon came from her.
Hmm.
Yeah.
You obviously used a bad example, Landon.
Right. I mean, well,
You should have said Bill Clinton.
right.
Yeah, there you go.
Take your daydream. I don't
Don't
know.
even.
Right? Justin Timberlake, man.
Oh,
Charlton Heston.
I don't know. He's all kind of rotted and bony now.
I know, but when I was a teenager and he was like in his 40s, I just thought he was the bomb.
He's the bomb, the hairy Pharaoh's son. Or the Pharaoh's hairy son.
Moses. He was Moses.
Yeah. Okay, verse 15. That David's piling sin upon sin here,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because now he's plotting for Uriah to get killed in battle.
Yeah.
So a roundabout kind of murder.
Right.
You wonder
All
what would
right,
happen
what he
if he
did.
just owned up to his mistake.
Yeah. He's trying to hide it.
Right, trying to hide his shame.
What's funny is, if you think about it, what he did today, I mean, if someone did that, it's like a life sentence.
Yeah, but he was the king. You get by with it.
Yeah.
Well, to the people, he could get by with it. To Abba, he didn't get by with it.
I found it interesting how much it cost. Because as we were reading further along, it wasn't like Uriah wasn't the only one that died. This had to be set up, and
Yeah.
other men that had nothing to do with it lost their lives because it had to be a situation that was believable, and so the cost was much greater to make sure that he was killed than just his life alone. And it made me think of the sin in the camp whenever the plague broke out.
Yep.
Yeah, someone else killed him, but look at that that Lion King thing that's going on right now. Supposedly, he paid someone to murder, or was trying to, and they didn't even murder him, and the guy's getting like a life sentence.
What was that? The Lion King?
Yeah, and stuff that was all over social media.
Zoo thing in Florida?
Oh,
Yeah, well, supposedly that guy was trying to hire someone to kill some lady, but she did like he didn't actually hire him, I don't think, and they didn't kill the lady, but yet he's still serving like a very, very long time.
That I found verse 26 interesting because it tells us that Uriah's wife mourned for him. So it kind of sort of hints that maybe she wasn't totally willing. I don't know.
But
Yeah,
how long was the time of mourning?
What?
How
Like a
long
month,
was the
isn't
time of mourning? Can you
I
know?
mean, like an official time of mourning?
Yeah. Does it say somewhere in Leviticus how long that is? Is it?
I think it's a month.
30 days?
Mm-hmm. So she mourns 30 days and then marries him.
Right?
Well, then we go back to David's second wife, the wife of Abigail.
The wife of Abigail?
I mean, David's wife, Abigail,
Right? Nahor's
Nahor's widow.
widow? Yeah.
So did she mourn for him?
I don't think it mentioned
We're
that.
not told on there.
Yeah, I don't remember it mentioning it.
Or was she just like, oh my goodness, good riddance?
I remember her saying, man, is he stupid?
Mm-hmm.
Basically. And then verse 27. But the thing that David had done displeased the Lord. What is that word displeased right there? Has anybody got quick access?
I had evil. Was evil.
Yeah, mine's evil too.
11,
Let's see what Second Samuel does.
27. I'm on it.
Displeased. Oh, I got a compound word. So Hebrew 34:15 and Hebrew 58:69. Yalra, to be broken up with any violent action. That is figuratively to fear, to be grievous. And the other word is ayin. Probably a primitive word, and literally or figuratively, by analogy, a fountain. So a fountain of grief, or broken fountain of fear. Interesting.
Yeah, mine says was evil according to Strong's.
Now
Yeah,
this
that
is Raha, R-A-A,
Mm-hmm.
was to be evil, bad.
That's what you have for displeased.
Yeah.
7489. Yeah, it's a concordance on Bible Hub. Had done was evil of the Lord, which I mean, it wasn't of the Lord, but
That is so weird that it's so different.
it's in the sight of the Lord. Sorry, I missed that part. I knew that wasn't right, of the Lord. Yeah, it's 7489.
In verse 27?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hmm.
Third person, to be bad, be evil, to be displeasing, to be
Weird.
sad, injurious. To be
Somebody's is way far off. Here, look. That. Dun, dun, dun.
Now, the displeased is what Landon was saying. It's, Strong 749 here.
See, so here, displeased. It's a compound word. 3415 and 5869.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah, interesting. So, what? Someone's trying to tweak something.
Right. I'm on the Bible Hub. It's just Strong 7489.
Well, the Greek says did was evil in the eyes of the Lord.
Yeah. That's what mine says.
Is it?
Yeah.
Interesting. The book Unspoken Bathsheba by Francine Rivers is an interesting look at what the story may have looked like through her eyes in the Lineage of Grace series about women of the Bible.
Hmm.
Yeah. Interesting.
So you can do a book report on that next week, Landon. Okay. Anyways, what about chapter 12? 2 Samuel chapter 12. I don't have anything until verses 9 and 10.
I don't have anything till 31.
No, I just find it interesting. He gets called on it through a parable. So that evil man must die, King David says. Well, you're that man.
Come here, baby.
I mean, no. You know, but he's told you're going to have war from now on. Now this is interesting because he's told he's going to have continual war, but he's also told he will not build the temple because he's a man of war.
Mm-hmm.
It might have been something he was looking forward to.
So could that have been, oh man, that's a bummer, but does that really affect him? It doesn't really affect him that much because he's been at war since he took down Goliath, basically.
Well, but that doesn't mean like men of war generally. I think about today, how things are simple, micro. It's not an aggression, but you take the gun away from Elmer Fudd. You know, like the little things like that, and then the generation grows up not knowing the horrors of some of the things. Like we've been guided by men with experience and horrible situations to say we don't want to live like that. And when you remove that from society, they don't grasp the concept until they're in the middle of it. And so it's kind of, it bears fruit.
It's interesting you say that because in the original Batman in Action Comics, he had 1911 pistol. But he's evolved into the anti-gun movie moniker now. So just kind of interesting. Nobody has a context for him being vigilante that he started out as. Anyways, that the character started out as. Something you were saying there. Oh, that's so in being told this, you're going to be a man of war forever. He doesn't realize at this point that means he's not going to build the temple. He's just like, okay. And then he says, I want to build the temple later. It's going to come down. Interesting. He's already a cross-dresser, Michelle. Okay. Anyways. I don't have anything until 14. Who said, what did you have? 30-something?
31.
Okay. 14, he's kind of given this curse, your son will die. Right? The product of this affair, of this adulterous affair. And then I don't have anything 18.
I find it interesting that the child is the one that bore the sin.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 18, that he lives 7 days. This is 7 days again. He doesn't even make it to the age of circumcision. He doesn't even make it to the cleansing ritual.
Right.
Interesting.
Right? Doesn't make it to the point where he gets to have a sin offering offered up for him. Verse 20, David repented and worshiped. Cleans himself off, goes in the temple and worships. Isn't that kind of, what does that make you think of?
Baptism.
Well, I mean, well, there's that. But I'm just thinking he's like, okay, I messed up. Time to move on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how many of us would just carry that and keep beating ourselves with it and keep beating ourselves with it over and over and over?
I'm bad about that. And that just now struck me. Just now, because I'm dealing with something right now that I think that's one of the hardest things for those of us who really seek after the Father, try to walk the narrow path with Yeshua. Forgiving ourselves is really, for me, it's difficult.
Well, it's a garbage bag full of junk that we drag around with us, and we need to take it to the trash bin and throw it in there. Yeah. And then walk away and stop going back in there and digging through it, you know.
That's good. Well, it reminds me too of he was on the ground, he was covered in dirt, he was covered in filth, and he got up and washed himself and that cleaned himself. Is that not what the blood of Yeshua does for us? Is clean that sin off of us. Doesn't mean that we don't suffer the consequences of it, but the sin's clean. And like you said, move on.
Yeah. It's hard. We're hardest on ourselves, I think.
But I go dig through the trash.
I do that too, and then you come out all dirty and mucky, and then you need to go wash off.
Stop dumpster diving.
Right.
Like a little.
I noticed in 25, I never picked up on this before, but it says that he named him Jedediah for the Lord's sake, and it's talking about Solomon.
Nathan.
Oh, it's talking about Nathan?
Wait, hang on.
Nathan called him Jedediah.
Well, it says, and he sent word through Nathan, the prophet, and he named him Jedediah for the Lord's sake.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Gotcha.
But I
I'm
never
sorry. I read that.
wonder what Jedediah means.
Called his name Jedediah.
Beloved of the Lord.
What?
Beloved of the Lord, according to the little clip notes.
Well, I was just going to say in verse 24, we have the appearance of Solomon.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting question, Sky.
So maybe the sin would have transferred down, or he would have been a son of dishonor, or
Maybe. Because he would
It's
have.
a name of Solomon, is what Strong says. Beloved of Yah, Jedediah, a name of Solomon. It's like a name of honor.
So if a prophet calls you something, right? Because that's the way it reads in Strong's is the name given to Solomon through Nathan the prophet.
That makes sense.
Right.
and going back to what Sky said, Solomon is in the lineage of David. I mean, of Yeshua. So what if that child was taken out of that lineage on purpose? Because it was David and Bathsheba's son that is the lineage of Yeshua.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just a thought.
But is that now a proper marriage?
She's more like his concubine.
Because she's now widowed. Right? Before, that son would have been the product of an affair.
Adultery.
Right.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Interesting.
And what is that back in, I don't know, somewhere in the Torah talking about children out of wedlock or bastard child, right? Product of fornication. Yep. That too.
Yeah. It's probably also a message to the people. Don't do this.
So David goes and evades Rabbah and kills the king, but then talks about bringing the people out in verse 31. That's brutal. Put them under saws, under harrows of iron, under axes of iron. Made them pass through the bricklin. That's an oven, isn't it? Or brick kiln. Brick kiln.
That's like really brutal.
That's harsh. Sawing them in half.
Yes. Cutting them to pieces. Burning them up.
Interesting. Let's go on to 13. 13. Chapter 13. And Landon, you read this. Tell us everything. I don't have anything until verse 2.
Yours too.
That I just thought this was kind of weird. He's because he fell sick for his sister, so he's lusting after his sister.
Mm-hmm. It's his stepsister, right?
Half sister.
Half
Or
sister.
half sister. Sorry.
Yep. And then in verse 6, he's faking being sick. Couldn't think of the word I was looking for, but he's malingering. Right?
Yep.
I don't have anything until verse 12.
Mine's in 13.
I just summed it all up.
In verse 12, Tamar rebuked Amnon. She's like, don't do this. You know, it's an evil thing you're bringing into Israel. Okay, and then what verse?
The next one.
Well,
I just find it interesting at the end, she said, the king would not withhold me from you.
Yeah, what's up with that?
And that's interesting. So does that mean that if he'd gone to David, he would have let him marry her? Half sister?
I think maybe she was just saying that.
Yeah, because sometimes in that position, you say anything, get out of it.
But if he truly, truly loved her, then it would have been about the union and not
Lust.
just an act.
Mhm.
And he wasn't interested in making it official.
Well, I find it interesting after he rapes her, he's like, get up and go away. And then he started hating her more than he loved her. But it's like, but then she's like, no, don't do this thing. And it's worse. It's greater than the other that you have done to me. It's like, what? How many women today would be like, no, I'm not going to go away from you after you've raped me?
Right. But the sentence that she was given, I mean, it was the social construct back then. It's like, says that she lived, what was the word? Desolate or...
In my translation, it says ruined.
Right. And so, like, that's like a life sentence back then to do that to somebody. Which, I mean, today, it's still a life sentence if, like, those that would harm innocence. But socially, I mean, it's,
Well, but back then, they would have had to marry her. For her to be married, she would have had to have proven her virginity.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so it basically left her destitute.
Yeah, it says she was left desolate in her brother Absalom's house. So it sounds like she's, to me it sounds like she can't get remarried, or I don't know, or doesn't.
Right.
Michelle, you are on it today. You know what that means? You're volunteering to read, aren't you?
Yeah, come on, Michelle.
Yeah. Come on, Michelle.
You can do it.
I find it interesting that verse 21 says David was wroth when he found out what had happened.
Mm-hmm.
Then he didn't do nothing.
Which kind of goes back to what Tamar said. I think she was just trying to buy
Time.
out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then was it you just now, Lynn, that said, why didn't David do something about it?
That's true.
Why didn't he remove him from his house, from the palace, and from wherever?
Absalom did.
Well, then there was more severe consequences.
But he might have been
2 years.
He might have been humbled by the fact that everything that he had done. That connects the two stories. It's like, oh no, but then woe is me because I did this. I did this great thing and murdered her husband.
Sounds like lust can be a really big problem.
Causes all kind of drama.
And it's everywhere. They push it.
Yeah.
And it's not just lust for sex or another person. It could be lust for anything.
Right. Coveting.
Right.
But I mean, that's That's the whole means of our society,
Mm-hmm.
right? You drive
Yeah.
past a billboard showing a new car, finance now.
Hope you can eat
Self-indulgence.
that later.
Yeah. Drive now, pay later. Oh,
Yeah.
you'll be paying later.
Yeah, you'll pay later.
All right. Everybody remind me to hound Michelle daily until she joins us.
We're going to get on you, Michelle. We're not leaving you alone. Nag, nag, nag.
What? Michelle's giving piggyback rides?
Well, and then Absalom starts hating Amnon because of that,
Right?
which is obviously his brother. Tricks him to come out there and has him killed.
Yeah. No.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think I could kill my own brother for doing something like that.
For raping your sister?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be upset, but I wouldn't kill him.
Well, but we live in a different type of situation with our siblings. This was a palace. They probably had their own quarters. It probably wasn't even, in my mind, each wife had sort of a house. And so they would not have actually probably grown up together or been real close.
And then if you live in the palace, you kind of have access. You have a different. It'd be like, well, that's a bad example. But if you look at those the way that the television shows the privilege of those that work in movies or in the music industry, and we know there's a dark side to that. But I'm saying the image that they present of the privilege of the rich. If you live in the king's palace, like you have access to, it would be almost absurd to do something like that when you go out on a stroll and the ladies at the well are like, "Ooh, it's Absalom," like. So why pick?
He's at the well.
But why choose to do that thing to Tamar and then to ruin her?
Mm-hmm.
It would probably seem extremely just wild to Amnon, like, make you want to cut somebody.
You notice it's always the women at the well getting the water, by the way? Just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Until you get
Herds.
to the disciples picking up the colt and ask for Yeshua to ride on.
Yeah.
And then it's the old man at the well. Old man at the well.
Mm-hmm.
The old woman at the well. Somebody lift this bucket up for me.
It's funny because that video you sent a while back, John, and it was like South Africa where they're building those dams and stuff.
Oh yeah, the stand dam.
Yeah, still today it's the women's. It probably comes from way back then, in their culture, but still the women, it was their job to get the water. Except they were probably walking like a long ways.
Long way.
Yeah, 10 miles.
Yeah.
10 miles for a couple gallons. Wow.
Get a 10-gallon pot for balance on your head, and then 5 gallons in your hand.
I think it's crazy how they balance all that stuff on their head. It's smart. You can carry way more on your shoulders or your head than, your arms.
That's fact.
As long as you keep your head straight.
Yeah. Good posture.
Is that what those rings are for?
Right? Like with those Adaleaf suspensions.
Gosh. That's
All
when
right.
you
Anything
know.
else in 2 Samuel 13?
Do you think Geshur was a city of refuge?
Is it listed as a city of refuge?
One of the yeah.
From the manslayer, like the whole manslayer concept. There were certain cities that you could go to.
One of the 7 cities. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's
And-
not listed as one of the cities of refuge,
Well,
right?
right. It's not. So
Let's see.
so it sounded like he just went to be protected by Ammihud, king of Geshur.
This says that it was a stronghold or fortress, and then it was near Bashan.
Hmm. Hmm.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Hmm. Gwen?
Part of the tribe of Manasseh.
Ooh.
Interesting.
Huh.
All right. So, general chat time. What's going on? What's happening in the world? What's happening in your world?
The world has gone crazy.
I know. Like, some people's day got an hour longer today.
It did?
Why did it switch?
Yes, turn your clocks back, Landon. You're going to be early to work tomorrow.
It's 12 o'clock. I'm not going to work tomorrow.
Oh.
It's 12 o'clock. My phone goes. I don't know. Louisiana put into like they sent it. I didn't realize you had to go to Congress with it or whoever, the House or whatever. But they don't want to participate in the time change anymore either. So we got something in common.
Yeah, but they're wanting to leave it at, instead of going back to the time we're supposed to have, they're going to leave it at daylight savings time. That's what they're wanting to do. That's, I think the last count I saw was 34 states. They're wanting to leave it at daylight savings time.
Now, how stupid is that? Seriously.
I remember that
Pretty
fight.
stupid.
Why not just leave the clocks where they're at?
Right?
There's a meme that's out there. It's like a picture of Geronimo or something like that. Because only white man can think that they can cut off a top of a blanket and sew it onto the bottom. And
I tell you one blanket they figured out that gave them more time.
I
Sorry.
never heard of that.
when you're not,
Not funny.
My bad.
All right. So, anyways, anybody getting any good weather?
A good one.
No.
we
No.
got good weather.
So sick of it.
Anybody getting bad weather?
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Yeah.
You're both saying you got bad weather. You're both in
Storm
Arizona.
of the century last night.
So, Lynn must have storms too, huh?
I'm not having any storms. That's the problem. When it's still 100 degrees at 1:30 at night, that's the problem.
I
That's
didn't
bad.
have that problem.
Yuck.
We got
So
tropical storms pushing through.
Yeah. You have what? Tropical Sahara sand blowing through?
No. The hurricane weather.
Oh.
Isaiah is due to hit Florida today, right around Miami, and we just had we just had another tropical storm that I thought I was gonna miss because I was in Tennessee, and I was like, awesome, I won't even touch it. Sure enough, Sunday I flew right into it. But it's just extra rain is all. Heavy rain. But not too much damage.
It's weird. It's been when we've been having rains out here recently. They're like monsoon rains, heavy rains, but the wind is so violent that my garage doesn't have corrugated roofing, but the house does. On the garage, it's flat, so it's literally just flying off the garage, not even in the gutters, because the wind's that violent. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, we've had like 3 monsoons here this year, and every single time they're so violent. And they're not coming every day like they're supposed to, or every other day. They're coming like every 2 weeks or longer. And so when they finally do get here, there's like 60-mile-an-hour winds and hail, and it's like crazy.
Yep.
It's not normal.
Yep. Violent.
We're going to have to lash things down.
All right. Well, let's let these people get back to sleep, resting. So thank you, Dee. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Landon. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Please share these studies, these readings, and the studies that we do. If we get more people to subscribe, then we'll be able to do more. And it's all free. 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 Actually free. So, anyways, thank you, everybody. I love you all. We'll see you very soon. Bye.
Bye.